Hey everybody, it's Rajesh here.
Intane here.
Welcome to our podcast, Baskets of Knowledge, Chats with a Difference. In our podcast, we invite guests from around the country and around the world to talk about how they got to where they're at the moment. It's about a journey, it's about an experience, it's about their life. Good to everybody. Welcome to another episode of Baskets of Knowledge. Hopefully, you've all been amazingly well doing whatever you do. Hopefully, you've been putting some things into your kitty over the last podcast. So, as always, I'm going to share what I put into my kitty since the last podcast. And yesterday, I was teaching a program with NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. And one of the things I said, which again reminded me of the world we're living in, is one of the quotes I used is, "A surgeon and a murderer can both use a scalpel. The problem is not the tool, it is whoever uses the tool." And I think about that in today's world where we think about AI, and there's all these messages about AI is good for you, bad for you, and like anything in life, whether it's AI or your cell phone or a scalpel, it's not the tool that's at fault, it's the people that use the tool. So my invitation for you is, before you go out there and you challenge a tool, think about who is using the tool, but also think about the biases that you have around that tool, which are forming your story. And that's just an invitation for you to think about. And that's something that I'm thinking about as I think about tools and the way the world is at the moment. But hey, as always, it's not about us. Tani can't join us today. He's away doing something exciting, as always. But I have the privilege and the honor of speaking to our guest today. And for some context, this is someone that I have been trying to get onto the podcast for a while. And the reason why is because they're a young person that is doing some pretty cool things. And also the reason why it's taken a while for them to come on is because they've been away doing pretty awesome things. But as always, the universe provides and the universe aligns things for the right time. So it is my real pleasure and honor to welcome our guest to the podcast. This young person has been doing some really cool things, and I'm very excited to see where this podcast goes because as we think about, we're all tools in the world, it's how we end up using ourselves in the world. So kia ora and welcome to the podcast, Ari.
Awesome. Thank you, Prajesh. First of all, really grateful to actually have the opportunity to come on Baskets of Knowledge. And that's really something to think about it's not the tool that you have to think about, rather it's how you're using the tool. And as a young person myself, I think that's incredibly important with our use of AI, especially in tertiary education.
Yeah, 100%. And I love that then. I love that you started that there because there's something we might touch on. But Ari, people who know nothing about who you are, I have the joy of knowing you a little bit. But who is Ari today on the 26th of February, 2026?
All right. So I'll give a quick kind of background of who I am. So
Yeah.
my name's Ari Taylor, and I was born in 2007. So I'm 18 currently, about to turn 19, which is really exciting. And I am in my first year out of high school. And so to know me as a person is I would say to know three things. The first thing being that I'm incredibly values driven and community oriented. And so before I go off to university, I'm working for World Vision. And this is something that has really deepened these values and this desire I have to work through my values. But it also gives me an outlet to work out through my values, whether that be respect or love, generosity, whatever it might be. The second thing would be I have placed a lot of emphasis on my physical health and also my basketball. So I've spent almost 12 years of my life playing basketball, and it really serves as a way to release any negative stress that I have, and it's something that I hope to continue when I eventually go to university. And then the third thing would be that humor is one of the building blocks of everything that I do. Like most Kiwis, I like to have a laugh, and the dry, sarcastic humor comes out sometimes at the wrong time, but I find humor can be one of the greatest ways to connect with people.
I love that. I love the way you have, announced yourself as your three power, which are basically the values, the basketball and humor. And if you think about that, if we think about us as a world and a society, if we all had our three power that we we anchor to whatever they are, then at least, we start finding out who we are as people and we can identify as we move forward. And I love that you spoke about your values as your first piece there, because I think when we know ourselves, we can then change the world. Talking about your values, is this something that came to you as you were a young person, or is it something that's always been strong with you because of the of your family bond and how your family has raised you?
So from the family that I've been raised up and been raised in a Christian household, these values of love and respect and of faith have been instilled in me since I was young. But it did take a while for me to actually let these, rather than have these values be my family's, but have these values become my own.
Yeah.
And you can only have your values become your own through personal experience. And so I would say as I grew up, as I was from 9 till 12, I really started to go, well, hey, what do these values that my parents subscribe to, what do they mean for me personally? And through those years, I really developed a key understanding of what because everyone's perception of love is different,
Yeah.
and that was something that took a while, but yeah.
And it's really cool because what I loved what you just said there and what I think our listeners think about is we all grew up in different family circumstances, and that's just part of our life.
Mm,
But some of us don't ever stop to think about, am I living out my family's values or am I living out my values? And sometimes the two align, which is fantastic, and sometimes they don't
mm,
align. And that's when things become a bit interesting when you have to identify yourself. But what I love about what you just said is those formative years of 19 to 14 or so, because those are the years when teenagers or young people start finding themselves, because you're now picking your identity and you're choosing your identity. And as you transitioned with that, there was it easier for you to go, actually, hey, these family values are hey, they're awesome, and I relate to them, but my definition of the relation is very different to, say, my
mm,
family definition.
mm. Yeah, I would agree with that. Now, that being said, with with how my parents have raised me, it has been I have found that my values do align with my parents' values, which has made conversations at the dinner table a little bit easier. But I I place everything the whole person that I am today would not be possible without my mom and my dad and my family and my support people around me really just lifting me up in points of lowness in my life, but also holding me down if my head's getting too big at the wrong time, for example.
Yeah, and that happens, right? That happens as part of life. And one of the values that you've said love a few times, but the other thing that you said was community, and I guess community family gives you community. Thinking about the impact that you've had in the community that you work in, recently you've
Mm.
just been over to the Solomon Islands. Was that a no-brainer for you to go, hey, I'm putting my hand up to do the World Vision, or did you have to get convinced to do it?
So the funny story is, I wanted to apply to be a World Vision Youth Ambassador in my
Yes.
year 12 of high school. Now, I was pretty terrible at reading my emails then. So I opened the email in November and the applications had to be done by May. So that's a pretty big difference. So I missed the boat in year 12, but that was okay. And I was like, when I got to year 13, this is something I just want to do it. I've seen these youth ambassadors come into my school and talk and make the 40-hour challenge more personal and more applicable to my life. And working for World Vision, having my values aligned so closely with World Vision's, it was a no-brainer and something that I was super excited for. I had been ever since I got that, ever since that first youth ambassador came into my high school, I was like, I've got to do this. This looks awesome.
No, I love it. It's always interesting how when people come into your lives at a certain point in time and you go, there's some, I don't know what it is, but this is what I want to do. So you missed out the first time, you apply the second time. And what is it like for you when you landed in the Solomon Islands? Because and I put that into perspective of we have these visions and we go, cool, this is what I'm going to do. But then you hit the ground. What is that like for you?
So it wasn't, the World Vision team had done an excellent job briefing us and educating us in a way that be good, we could be a good representative of World Vision New Zealand. So we were in the Solomon Islands for just over a week. And just to add a quick backstory, but we're there to serve, but you cannot make real change in a week.
Yeah.
It's just not possible. And sometimes when you go to a different community, a different country, whatever it might be, your perception of helping and of service might be completely different. And you really have to understand how to help someone, but without hurting them. And so a big emphasis for our trip was supporting the World Vision staff that are already in the Solomon Islands and that are working every day. But it was also to gather stories from communities in the Solomon Islands and bring them back to New Zealand so that when I go to these high schools around the Upper North Island, I actually have something to talk about from a first-hand experience. And when I was on the plane, I hadn't been thinking about what the Solomon Islands would be like, and until we started flying over the forest covered and jungle covered mountains and islands, and I was like, oh wow, I'm really here now. I have no idea what I'm walking myself into, and I think a little bit of my naivety was I assumed it would be something like Fiji, but not Fiji. And but I was completely blown away when we landed, not because of the circumstances that we landed in, but because this had been something that I'd been so excited for. And I walked off the plane and you get your bags and then it's you're suddenly there. And it is it's very different, but it's also very similar to New Zealand. And if you haven't been to the Solomon Islands, it is the people are the exact same as New Zealanders. They like to laugh, they like to sing and dance, they're all super happy. But the circumstances that they live in are very different. And that took some time getting used to. But that at no point meant that was never a negative in my eyes. It was
Wow.
simply difference. And difference is okay, ultimately.
Yeah. And what's important there is people are people
Mm,
and the circumstances are very different and people live to the circumstances. And what I like about what you said there is when you're in Auckland Airport or Christchurch Airport and you're off to go wherever, cool, 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 until the plane starts landing and wherever you're going and you go, whoa, actually, I'm in a whole new place. And
mm,
it's really interesting thinking that right now, as we're having this chat here, there are people around the world in different contexts doing very different things, but we're all on the same planet and we're all the same humans. That when I think about that, my mind was just boggled about how crazy that is. That right now there could be another young person having another conversation with another young person in another place, talking about something totally different. It's
mm.
pretty crazy. But as you started your week in the Solomon Islands and I guess you worked with the young people there and the World Vision staff there. What was one of the big aha moments for you as you take things that are on pieces of paper that you write in New Zealand versus reality?
Yeah, so that is an excellent question. So I was on the trip with three other youth ambassadors and some World Vision staff, and we spent the first half of our week in on an island called Malaita, which is about a 3 to 4 hour ferry ride from the capital island of Guadalcanal. And the other youth ambassadors, they all had these crazy experiences on in Malaita, and they talked about how they were so moved and they were heartbroken, and they would like break down in tears. And not to say I wasn't feeling any emotions, but all I felt was just joy and happiness in these environments, because these communities had so little, but they were also so willing to share, and you could see that these communities were joyful and had so much love for each other. And so that really made me feel quite at peace in the communities. But when we went back to the main island of Guadalcanal, and we went to a slum community in the capital city of Honiara, and that was my like aha moment. We were I was quite unwell that day actually, and we are walking through this community that's 100 by 100 meters squared, and there are 1,000 people living there.
Wow.
And it is, and this little boy who could not be any older than 4, he reaches out and he grabs my hand like that, and grabs onto my finger, and he starts pulling at it, and he's holding a ball, and we just start tossing the ball around. And then he grabs me again the same way, and he leads me through the slums. And we don't share a language at all,
Yes.
but he's so excited to show me his house and his friends and his shoes. And he was just so accepting and welcoming of this complete stranger in his house, and wanted nothing. He didn't want anything from me. He just wanted to be with me. And that was the moment that I really understood why World Vision does what they do. Because it's always all right when you're doing the 40-hour challenge and you go, yes, that person in Malawi doesn't have water. And you go, okay, I'm going to raise X amount for them. But actually having that deeply personal experience with this young child really showed to me that, hey, you going back to my values, you can work through your values, and you should work through your values, because my heart really went out to this little child, and that was an awesome moment.
Yeah, and it's all about the connection, right? Right now you have a connection to the place, but through the person. And if you think about, I'm sure you in your life experience as well, that when you're emotionally connected to something, you are more likely to fight for it versus something that's arbitrary. Like you say, yeah, let's give water to someone in Malawi. Okay, cool, cool, cool. And then we just raise money, but we don't think about it. That when you go there and you go, oh, I can see the impact that my $100 is making. That's a totally different story
Mm.
than not having the connection. And what I love there, what I also love about your story is a reminder that as humans, when we are young and children, we don't have any barriers and expectations. That young person just took you and said, "Hey, look at my shoes, with my friends." There was no, "Oh, my house is not good enough, my shoes not good enough." And my question I always have is, when do we change in our lives when that becomes important? We forget about play, and then we're just all humans.
Mm. I think that's definitely a difficult concept to
Yeah.
grasp, especially as a kid in New Zealand, I would say. And this has this isn't necessarily a mindset that I've had my whole life, but my parents made always made me aware of the blessings that I had and the gifts that I had received through nothing but luck. I didn't deserve to be born into the family that I was born into. I didn't deserve to be born in New Zealand, but I was. And and that is such a blessing. And I would say I was probably around 13 when I really started to think about, well, hey, there are more people and there are less people, and it's not all just about play.
Yeah.
I um I actually wrote a speech in year four at school, so that would have been when I would have just turned 10, and I wrote a speech about the Syrian refugee crisis for my speech competition, and I got into the quarterfinals. Did not make the finals, unfortunately, but World Vision actually invited me to give this speech at their head office in Auckland, and that moment really planted the seed in me that there is more to life than just play. There is more to life than everyone existing in a happy realm like they do in my world.
Mhm.
And from there, it just grew. Sometimes some years it grew faster, some years it grew slower. But I cannot understate how valuable that Solomon Islands trip was. Just being able to actually see the impact that the fundraising is doing was super powerful.
And again, that's so beautiful, it's like I talk about these as your Kairos moments in life. We all have Kairos moments when, you know, before you gave that speech, you were living your world here. You gave this speech, and that's a defining moment for you at that point in time. You're on a plane flying to Solomon Islands, you land in Solomon Islands, defining moment for you right there. And we all go through these, which is really, and it's awesome to reflect on that there. And talking about reflection has always spoken about the world vision, but I also know that you're a youth ambassador. That's what that how that journey has started off, and how did you go about putting your hand up for that as well? And I say put up your hand because a lot of these are choices,
Mm.
and I say that they're choices because all this is out there, and then we make a choice to apply or put up our hand or say yes to opportunities. Let's talk us through that point in time.
Yeah, all right. So I I hadn't always had this interest in international politics, but I my family was never against talking about politics at the dinner table. I have distinct memories of actually putting up hoardings with my grandmother's face on them while she ran for city council at aged 4. But when so I was I was working to go to America for university, which is going excellent. And I was getting some advice from someone, and they were looking through my application, and they were like, "Hey, so you've done this interning for a local MP, you've done this. I have this friend who works to get young people to go to the UN, and I'm pretty sure they'd love you." And so it's not how much you know, it's a lot of who you know. And so I connected with this person, and I was lucky enough to go to the UN, and I got selected out of 2,000 global applicants, and I was one of 12, I believe, and the only from New Zealand. And I'm not sure, but possibly the first ever from New Zealand. But I got to go, and I I went because you have to go as a representative. You cannot go uh, as just as a person. So
Yeah.
I went as a representative of an organization that I founded, but also a global organization that I'm a partner in. And and so this was something that the door kind of just opened, and I had this position where I had done this work in New Zealand and internationally. And it was a moment of, for lack of a better word, damn, I've been invited to New York to go sit in the UN building and take part in discussions regarding the sustainable development goals. And it was very scary, especially as someone who had not been to New York and had only been in America for a layover. And it was definitely a moment of like, real faith, just stepping out into it and going, you know what, it's going to be, this is a moment for you and to enjoy it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I love how you've just said, it's not what you know, it's about who you know. But the who you know is also going to come around by doing different things. If you just
Absolutely.
if you sit at home and play computer games, that's cool. That's no judgment here, but it's going to limit the number of people that know who you are and the things that you do. So I love that you have said that there, and I also love how you mentioned that the doors open for you and you say yes, but also the fear. It's real. Being a friend is real. And one thing I want to ask you is when you're over there, how did you relate to all these people from around the world that come together? And because I'm sure everyone is afraid as well. Did you crack some cool Kiwi jokes and sarcastic dryness, or was it like, oh, I've got to be a certain way? What is it like for you as a human being?
Yeah. So the Kiwi sarcasm definitely came out. And thankfully, there were some. I actually met a lovely American boy called Jack, who's the same age as me. And we instantly became friends in that moment. And that made it far easier for me because when we went, all the kids gathered together and they went around the room talking about the organizations that they worked for or had founded. And I remember the person just before me talked about how they were arranging for drones to fly around and pick hard to reach fruit in China so that little children wouldn't have to go up and risk death. And I was like, whoa, that is that is crazy. You have the ability to you can understand how to make a drone that can be remote controlled or just autonomous in its own self that can go and pick fruit. And I felt in that moment, if I'm being completely honest, I felt you get that imposter
Yeah.
sensation. And in that moment, I was like, wow, maybe I'm not meant to be here. But I ended up talking and introducing myself. And there was a reason that I was there. And I managed to actually connect a few of them with the international organization I was a partner in and create meaningful change.
Yeah, and I love what you just said there because and I think this is everyone listening here, and including myself, you go into these big rooms and you hear all the things that people are doing, like, whoa. And then you compare yourself, and
Mm,
but you're comparing yourself to their reality. This is your reality, which is totally, totally different. And I'm glad that you spoke up because your work that you do is pretty cool. And I'm guessing you're talking about Te Hikoi Ki Waitangi. Is that correct? Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, for listeners out there, let's explain why you formed it and what Te Hikoi Ki Waitangi is all about.
absolutely. Okay, so it was 2024 when the Treaty Principles Bill was introduced. And as a young person interested in politics at the time, I had a lot of questions. And I didn't necessarily know what to believe. And it is kind of a taboo topic, but a lot of my friends and young people at my school, they didn't understand it either. They would crack jokes, some offensive, some not, and that was something that I was not a fan of. And I am a very big believer in knowledge and education as the base of all things. And in that moment, I was like, I've got to do something. I have this position, I have this leadership position at school. And every every leader should understand the people that they are leading. And there's a saying at my high school that was, we are creating the leaders of tomorrow, but the leaders of tomorrow need to understand who they're leading, right? You
Yeah.
cannot lead your friend group, and you cannot you have to understand the background. And so Te Hiko Ke Waitangi was born from that idea. And in my first year, which I led in person. I took four other student leaders, and we went up to Waitangi Day, and we experienced a Waitangi Day in person. And this was my third Waitangi Day, but for them it was all their first. And while we were up at Waitangi, uh, there was a lot of tension in the air surrounding the Treaty Principles Bill, but there was also a lot of learning to be had, and there were workshops there specifically about the Treaty Principles Bill, hearing from both sides, and that was something that was really powerful. And when we came back from Waitangi, I remember talking with the other students in the car and hearing about how they gained an entirely new perspective on the founding of our nation and the Treaty of Waitangi. And from there, it was that moment of, hey, this has to continue. And so I have started working or attempting to work with other schools. We've had interest from actually a few schools around the North Island, and the South Island as well, which is a crazy idea for me to comprehend, that something that I have founded on a crazy dream and a crazy idea has now come to the point where there are schools coming in contact with me and being like, hey, we love this idea. How would you make it work for us? And yeah, so we are actively working with, well, we've had interest from one school in the South Island, but we're actively working with one school now to try and send at least 24 student leaders
Wow.
up
Yeah.
to Waitangi for next year, and then hopefully continuing to grow the program year after year.
Yeah, and you know what's pretty cool there, Ari, is the line was a crazy idea, a crazy dream created this year. And if we pause for a second and think about all the awesome things that are out there in the world, the tools as we started with, every single tool out there started with a crazy idea and a crazy, so it's pretty cool and a crazy dream. And when I listen to what you just said there, it reminds me of something I heard the other day at a podcast about the Wright brothers. Um, they invented the plane. And when the Wright brothers invented the plane in October 1903, there was an article that said humans will never fly. It'll take 10 million years for humans to fly. That was in October. And then in December, the Wright brothers had their first flight. And the article said, "Oh, this is a crazy dream. It'll never, nothing will happen with it." And now we fly all the time. So I read that back to your story because, it's a crazy dream that started in 2024, but the legs it's going to give and the opportunities it's going to give to, you have no idea. You have no idea the generations after that it's going to impact. So it's pretty awesome that you did it there. But my question for you comes from a different angle as well. So we have the bill that's getting passed, and as someone that is a young person living in a multicultural New Zealand, a multicultural Tommy Makota, because it is one of the most diverse cities in the world. How did that sit for you as you started seeing that, okay, this is really front of mind for a lot of people, and sometimes the rhetoric that you're hearing is anti and pro. Like there's, like you said, there's two angles. And as you're sitting here trying to formulate your idea and you have friends and peers that may um, align with either side, how do you feel? I'm talking about emotion because, sometimes there's embarrassment, sometimes there's anger, sometimes there's joy. What went through you as you were going through that period of time?
I would say excitement is the
Yeah.
first word that came to mind. It was a really exciting moment to share this knowledge and to share in the opportunity to gain knowledge. And that, so I was definitely scared as
Yeah.
well. I had a 2 a.m. phone call with my mum at Waitangi, and I remember just letting loose and being like, what if the other students don't get what I get out of this? Because I get a certain knowledge and I got this understanding and this I was now able to formulate my own opinions with a real understanding for both sides of the argument. And I was so concerned and so fearful that all of this would be for nothing and that these students wouldn't, because you can't tell someone what to experience.
Yeah.
And that is the scary thing with these crazy dreams that you have, that you cannot force someone to experience it the way you want to experience it. But in that moment, it was also exciting because you've made your bet now. You just got to
Yeah.
hope it cashes, and thankfully it did cash. But yeah, it was, yeah,
Yeah. And it's so true because, excitement and fear are two sides of the same coin.
absolutely.
Yeah, so it's pretty awesome that you had both. You had both. And I always, when people talk to me and they go, they have one but not the other, I'm like, something is missing. For you to be, if it's something that's your baby and your dream or your reality, those two things just come together. It's a bit like this podcast here. Every podcast we record, like I said, this year 190 odd. Every podcast before I jump on, there's excitement, there's fear, always. Excitement because I get to do this, but also fear. But what if the other person is not excited to be on you? What if it doesn't go well? What if it is? Because those are the stories we tell ourselves because this is your baby, right? And you're the thing that you crib is your baby as well and the vision that you see. So, and I love that you share that there. And it's also a great reflection for anyone listening out there. If you have fear and excitement, it means that you really believe in whatever insert X into here. In terms of fear and excitement as well, one of the cool things that I noticed about you, I read about you, was you're also one of the head students at your school. And I use the word
Mm.
fear and excitement because, as I share with you, I've worked with lots of young people around the Moshu, and most of them share with me when they're in head leadership positions that it's awesome, but it's also quite scary because everyone's eyes are on you. What did that feel like for you and I say this in the nicest way possible, as a young person that's shouldering all these eyes on you, and you are still trying to be a young person, but now you have a leadership role thrust onto you.
That's a great point. And I I'm going to be honest. I never really thought about that weight on my shoulders.
Beautiful.
But when I think a very key point of shouldering that burden is you have to have some support people. You
Yeah.
cannot continue to do, or I could not continue to do what I was doing and then add on being a prefect at my school and stay afloat. And so just being able to have a family and friends who were so welcoming of this new challenge that had been put into my life, that was something that really helped. But also just having an excellent team supporting me as well. So I managed so I and my co-house leader, we managed a team of 12 prefects. And so having 12 other students to help you definitely makes life easier. But
Yeah.
I think leadership is having a leadership position, or being a leader itself is not reliant upon a leadership position, but being recognized by your school, being recognized by your community, whatever it might be, with an official leadership position. I saw it as a gift rather than a burden, and an opportunity to really give back to this community, being my school, that had given me so much. And yeah, that was an awesome year because I was in a position where I could really devote that year to other people and to the school rather than myself.
I really love that, and I love that because um when I talk to lots of people, one of the things that people talk about is confidence. They don't have the confidence or have the confidence or lack of confidence. And as you spoke about these, you mentioned one of the C's I talk about with confidence, which is connection. And actually, I have three C's that talk about courage, competency, and connection, and that'll give you confidence. And as you think about what you've just shared there, the courage to say yes and the courage to go, yeah, bring it on. That's pretty epic. The connection, as you said, without your family and your friends, the confidence disappears pretty quickly. But also the competency, the belief in yourself. that hey, this is pretty cool. It's not a burden, it's a gift, which is really, really awesome. And I love that because I guess this really nicely segues into the other part of your world, which is your basketball. Basketball is a big part of your life, as you mentioned. And as you think about Ari the basketballer and Ari with all these other things here, how do you balance it all?
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you just drink some water. Yep, don't choke.
Yeah, that would not be a great way to be on my first podcast ever, just choking on camera.
Hey, that's
Sorry, could you
reality,
repeat the
right? Yeah.
last?
Yeah, no, cool.
Could you repeat the last part?
Yeah, but I guess the question is, you have all these things happen in your life, and basketball is also a big part of your life. How do you balance it all in such a way that you still enjoy everything? And the reason I use enjoy because some people they feel like they have to do something as opposed to I get to do something.
Mm,
How do you balance it all and keep yourself smiling and humorous?
that's an excellent point. That you get to do something rather than having to do something. I'm not going to lie. I kind of felt at the end of year 13, I would say I was incredibly exhausted,
Yeah,
and basketball had switched from that I get to do it to I have to do it. Now, not to say I didn't enjoy it because I still loved it, but it was that point of just having doing so much. It really flicked that, but thankfully it's flicked back until I get to do it now. But juggling two very important parts of your life is not easy, and there are sacrifices that have to be made. And a lot of people generally hold the idea that sacrificing something is a negative thing, when I saw it as a positive. I got to sacrifice going to X, like I got to sacrifice going to a party on this weekend so I could wake up early the next morning and not be impaired for when I trained. I got to sacrifice going to certain school events that I would have gone to usually in favor of getting home, studying so that this plan that I had for my life could come to fruition. And now my mum's going to love this one. So hopefully she watches the podcast. But she put me on this awesome thing called time boxing.
hmm
And it's genuinely, this is a revolutionary concept for my 17, 18-year-old mind. But you get a day planner and you genuinely block out everything. And I know it sounds simple and not effective, but it it really allowed me to live my life without fear of missing something, without the fear of not training hard enough, not studying hard enough, because I knew exactly what I had to do every day, whether it be wake up in the morning, train, then I go to school, and and I would always include rest in the time box so that I could rest without that feeling of guilt that you usually have when you've
Yeah.
got work on the horizon or a competition on the horizon. And that was a really crucial thing, especially for my final year of high school, doing my high school diploma, high level basketball, doing my SATs, my APs, writing my essays for all these American colleges, training hard. But time boxing, I cannot recommend it enough. And it's just revolutionized how I do everything.
Yeah, I shout out to your mom. Your mom's pretty epic, and the thing about time boxing, as you said, it is so simple. It's one of
Mm.
the simplest tools that you can use. I use that in my coaching with high executives, and I'm like, hey guys, just time box your calendars. And they're like, what are you talking about? This doesn't work. Give it a crack for 1 week, and as you said, when it's in your calendar, somehow your brain just makes it happen because as the key phrase you use there is the feeling of guilt disappears because you put in there, I'm going to rest or I'm going to
Mm.
go for a walk or whatever it is. I love that. And that's such a good tool there. And I love how you use the word revolutionary because it is revolutionary because it's so simple. You don't require apps, you don't require just a piece of paper and your brain.
Absolutely.
No, I love that. And now as you sit at the precipice, I use the word precipice on purpose, you finished up high school, you've been in New Zealand, this has been your all you've known in terms of yourself and your identity. And now as you look to probably go to the States, what feelings do you feel? As you know, it's pretty exciting, it's pretty cool. And how are you feeling at the moment? It's going to be September when this happens, but you've got a few months to navigate the story within yourself.
Yeah. So it has been almost 2 years of like nose to the grindstone work because the American high school college application is so intense. You you cannot, unless you are a top level sports player, you cannot get into a school that you might want to get into without preparing for at least 2 to 3 years. And it's the same like every job interview. They I assume, but interviewers don't care if you've done something for 3 months before
Yeah.
getting the job. They want to see long-term devotion to projects. And so I think so now I'm in the waiting zone. I've applied for all my colleges and I've been accepted into a lot and I'm still waiting on some to return and I'm playing the waiting game until May. And there was there was a point in my application journey where I thought I wouldn't get into a single university in America. I sat down with my parents and I said, "Hey guys, I don't think this application is good enough. Why are we even doing this? I am not uh, I'm not going to go anywhere." And I'm incredibly hard on myself, but that fueled me to work harder. And now I'm in a position where I get to pick which school I get to go to. And I get to pick from a multitude of awesome, awesome institutions. And again, there was fear at the start, but fear because there was so much I had to do. But the pieces of advice that I would give would be number one, it's time boxing. But number two, it's working hard. And it's working hard even when you don't see your results. And that's it. That was something that was difficult for me, but I worked hard for two. If the result I wanted to see would happen in 2 years, and so if you work hard for a year and a half, you're not going to see that result. But you, even though looking back every day, I'd be like, I can't see I cannot see the reward that I have got from this hard work. But it was continually pushing and pushing and pushing. And now, because of that, I get to look back at these last 2 years. And at the start of that, I saw it as an impossible hurdle, but I've done it now. And I cannot over I cannot understate how valuable working hard is, but working hard without seeing that end is,
Yeah.
because eventually the end comes,
Yeah.
and that's the awesome thing is your hard work will be rewarded, but you cannot stop every 5 minutes to look over your shoulder and hopefully see that reward because it doesn't work like that. But
Yeah.
it is, yeah, I'm in this point now where I'm just fizzing. I'm so excited.
Oh, brilliant. And I'm sure we're excited for you, so I can't wait to hear what the next stage of your evolution. And I use the word evolution because we're all evolving and evolving all the time. But what I love again, Ari, was the way you broke that right down. A lot of us are programmed to search for the end goal. But it's when you don't see the end goal, but you're committed to it, that the end goal will come. And a phrase I like to use is how do you defeat any mountain is one step at a time. Like when I first moved to New Zealand, I did lots of tramping and I never knew. I was like, where am I going? I have no idea what I'm going to. but you just trust the process one step at a time, and then you get to the summit, and you're like, wow, this is really beautiful. But if I stopped and I look back, I've only gone 2 steps. I've got so nowhere to go. I would never have got the top because and I'm saying this for myself, and now what I would feel like, I feel dejected, like, oh, I've done so much, but there's so much more to go. So I love the way you put that there. It's, you don't see the reward, but you know the reward is there. You just don't see it. So we're very
Absolutely.
excited for you, but also excited for the way you've done it and the way you've still managed to maintain all the other things in your world. Ari, we've been speaking for almost an hour. I mean, this conversation has just flown by really fast. And before we close up, anything else that you'd like to add that we've missed out before I ask you my final question that you think is an important part of your story as a young person right now?
I mean, I've been singing their praises the whole time, but genuinely, as a teenager, you always think you're right. But through this journey, I have found that it's good to trust mum and dad. Honestly, they tend to know what's up. They can see 3 steps further ahead than I can see, and so really relying upon people who've done it before, whether it be your parents, your coaches, even students 2, 3 years older than me, has been has been really formative for me. I have never claimed to know everything, and I never will. But there are people around me who know more than me in areas, and just being super open to constructive feedback, but also knowledge from those people is something that I could not recommend more.
That is so beautiful. I think about this all the time. I think about things that my parents told me when I was young, and I'm like, oh, yeah, they were right. One day listen to them, and we have whatever happens when you're young. But I love that. But it's also not your parents as well. It's people that have walked the walk. It's people that have walked the walk, but not people that talk the talk. That's the important differentiation, right? So if they talk the talk, but they've never walked the walk, those are the people you want to avoid because they're just speaking from something, but they haven't got the scars to show that actually I've
Mhm.
done it. Really, really beautiful. I love that. And this is going to be an interesting end for you, I guess. You shared so much today and some really beautiful, beautiful life skills and life lessons. But our podcast is called Baskets of Knowledge. And at the end, we invite our guests to share a piece of knowledge to put into our basket. So my question for you is what piece of knowledge would you like to add that you haven't shared already or that you think is going to be impactful for anyone listening to the podcast?
That is a that's a great question. I think okay. Here's my piece of knowledge then, or my piece that I feel is incredibly important. That with the rise of technology and apps that are designed to just keep you scrolling, whatever it might be, the next thing, the next story, the next TikTok, the next reel, whatever it might be. But there, there's going to be two groups of people in the future: those who can focus for long periods of time, and those who cannot focus. And the knowledge that I would like to impart is genuinely just read, because there was a time where I lost that ability to focus. But reading is the ultimate hack to just keep that focus, because you have to be able to focus later in life. And you want to be in that class that can focus versus all that, maybe not the class, but you want to be a person who can focus later in life. So just read.
And that's so cool. If we go back to where we started the podcast, it was tools. Everything's a tool, and a book is a tool. It's right there in front of you, and you get to choose how you want to use it. And reading is such a great life skill to have, not just for the focus only, but also the knowledge and it's the limitless potential with reading. So I love the way you have put that there, and I love the way it's come full circle roundabout that. We have all these tools in our lives. You choose to use it. But if you choose to use it in a certain way, you will have certain results. If you choose to use it in a different way, you'll have different results. I love it. I love it. Ari, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. It's been a real pleasure having this conversation with you. And I guess my question for you is, for anyone interested in learning more about your story and wanting to connect with you and hear about maybe your world vision or, the organization you founded, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you if you are open to that there?
Yeah, so I'm not on any social media by choice, but the one social media I am on is LinkedIn. So if anyone's curious, I'll be trying to keep my LinkedIn updated to my very best, but that's probably the place you want to go.
Awesome, beauty. And I love the way that you made a choice on not being present on social media. That's pretty cool. Ari, beautiful. Thank you for this corridor. It's been really beautiful, and we can't wait to see what happens in the next few months for you, I guess. To listeners out there, hopefully you enjoyed this chat. Hopefully you saw a bit of yourself in this conversation as well. And if not yourself, somebody that you know and the challenges they might have, but also looking at everything from two sides of the same coin. If fear and excitement are exactly the same thing. So till next time, don't forget to find a reason to smile. Maybe go listen to Ari's stand-up comedy at some point. He's a comedian. Number two, don't forget to put something in your basket of knowledge. And number three, like Ari said, pick up a book, pick up a newspaper, and just read for 5 minutes as well. Just give it a crack and see what happens. Till next time, talk to you, Ari. Stay safe. Bye, everybody. Peace.
Thank you for listening to Baskets of Knowledge.
Yeah, we hope that you found something useful to put into your basket of knowledge. And as we said before, remember to put something little into your baskets of knowledge every week. And as always, feel free to like, comment, and share this podcast. Thanks, everybody. Bye.